the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Sankey.
Yeah.
How you doing, Greg? Didn't know you went into the selection committee's office and paid them all off. I didn't know that's what we were doing in March, Greg.
No, that's earned, man. I could go through the record if you want. I think they said it on the show. 89% of our non-conference games. I'll go through all the data for you that informs it.
No, Greg, that's why we love you, because we think you not only represent your conference in a fashion that has all your schools thankful, but you have a lot of pride in the SEC. So whenever I see the reaction that I saw whenever 14 teams were selected on the internet, I couldn't wait to chit-chat with you. Going into this particular, SEC conference tournament, and then into the selection Sunday, everybody talks about how great the SEC was this year. The SEC, it's the SEC's year. Now, granted, that's media fodder, and people say that is what it is, but why do you think the SEC was so good at basketball this year? Is it investment? Is it commitment? What do you think it is that really transitioned from you guys having 4 to 6 to 8 teams in the tournament each year to now to 14, Commish?
We had to learn some hard lessons. We spent a lot of years with 3 or 4 teams being in, and that was it. And I think all of those words you used are part of it. I'll start with coaching. Every one of our 16 coaches has been in the NCAA tournament with one team at least as a head coach. I think 6 of them have been to the Final Four. A lot of depth and a lot of experience. There's the commitment. We have new arenas, new facilities. Trying to manage through this new era of name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal. Perhaps we've been a bit ahead, but I don't know that it really matters if you're great at like name, image, and likeness if you don't have the right leadership in place. And I'll really start there. To go back 10 years ago, we needed new expectations for how we performed on the men's basketball side because we succeeded in everything else, quite candidly, but we didn't even meet our own expectations in men's basketball. And that's what's different today is we're functioning in men's basketball like we do in women's basketball or baseball, softball, football.
Gymnastics. I mean, you go through the
golf.
I assume,
all of them.
All of them. Yeah, men's and women's is what he was talking about. You guys take a lot of pride in how your sports do, and the conversation about the basketball. We need to get better in the men's basketball for the dance. I think a couple years back, the Big Ten had a shit ton of teams. I don't remember these 10 something, maybe
10 plus.
Yeah, maybe 12. Mm-hmm. And then first round or second round, not great. Like the Big Ten ended up not performing as well. Didn't have 14 teams, which is obviously a record-breaking number, but had a lot. It was supposed to be the Big Ten's year, and then got in, and it was almost like upset after upset. Do you think your teams are built for the tournament to go on a big run? And how will you be shit-talking throughout all this? If your teams do well, will there be a tweet, or are you just going to idly watch your squads go out there and compete?
Well, talking season's behind us. And Pat, last Monday, I sent a memo to our coaches to say, hey, wherever you're seated, wherever your sights set, whatever your opponent, just focus. And so we want to stay focused as a group. So I'm going to own that as well. Now, there is a level of pride, and I think there's a level of pride in the league. Really cool set of text messages from coaches yesterday who gained access, who got in maybe as 8, 9, 10 seeds. And it's a grind for those guys. And I said back to them, I'm proud for all of us. I'm proud of what we do on the women's basketball side. We've got every one of our 16 universities represented on either the men's or women's side. I think that stands alone. We've got 2 number 1 seeds on the men's side, 2 number 1 seed on the women's side. I think as we go forward, there's a chance for upset. Sure. When you're like 8, 9, 10, 11, losing is not an upset. Yet the level of competition this year in our league in winning almost 90% of our non-conference games, a bunch of those against high-level teams, and then playing through the grind of our conference schedule on the men's side and the women's side means you're prepared for just about anything. Now, you have to go meet the moment. And that's the question that comes up. And the records are clean. We're all undefeated at this point. And then week to week, game to game, you have to make your way through 6 games over 3 weeks to see who the national champion will be.
Every time you answer, I just think to myself, I wish this guy was the commissioner of whatever league I had. The amount of pride, investment, and everything. You go to all these games, you talk to all these people, and you're not scared to be like, yeah, our conference, we're better than you at sports. Like we are, that is our goal, that is our mission, not only academically, but we like to play well on the athletic side of this all. I love the way you chat, and I think there's a lot of hate because of, for a long time during the football season, the SEC was the big thing for ESPN. And obviously, ESPN has deals with the ACC. They have deals with the Big East, I think. They have deals with the SEC. They got deals with a lot of people, but no, it's SEC ESPN. Like the fact that you're even on my show right now, people are going to say that I'm in on the SEC ESPN. It's like, well, if the Big Ten had this many teams in there, we'd have Petitio on here too. Paisan, say happy St. Patty's. Like, it's just a conversation. You've been very good to us, but I think the SEC just gets a lot of disrespect because of the amount of shine and light on the sports teams from down there. Do you agree with that, or do you try to not pay attention to any shit?
Well, I hear the noise. I'll tell you one thing about the Southeastern Conference. We are not uninteresting, right? And I think people want to watch. They want to be in conversation about that which is interesting. And whether it's 14 men's teams, 10 women's teams, you go back when I threw out the Sesame Street quote at game day last December about one of these things is not like the other. Like, I can only use that once. I can't use it over and over. People may interpret that as arrogance. I think that's really defining who we are, who we've become, how we want to function. We want to be unique. And I use with Pete Thamel in an article the word unicorn because we're a unicorn league. Just the historical success, it hasn't happened in over 40 years in men's basketball at the college level. The kind of non-conference success, the kind of high-level competition. And I'll just say, from our fan standpoint, to be in Nashville for the last week, you can hear in my voice, I've got the post-tournament congestion. Of course, but to just be around that feel, that environment, that intensity, that's really unique and special, and a credit to what happens on our campuses and our communities. Sometimes that might be a little bit over the top, but it's what makes us special, I think.
Yeah, and to go back to your point about the early history of those SEC schools, I think Saban talked about how, there was no professional sports in any of these places. Right. So the universities were the sports teams. They were the ones representing the entire state, the city, everything like that. So generations and generations. I'm not saying it's not like that. Like Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, you go through the big Oregons. Like, there are places that have massive fan base, and I'm not saying that is just in the SEC, but it feels like it's everywhere in the SEC. It is like, this is what we will live and die with, and the sports teams obviously are supported in a massive level. Now, on that note, you did a little bit of this with Texas and Oklahoma. Now, Coach Pitino just brought it up literally 15 minutes ago. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, Commissioner, when it comes to conference expansion, do you talk to other commissioners about the benefits? Do they ask you, hey, how did you go about it? What is that process like? Because Pat mentioned, Coach Rick Pitino has been kind of lobbying to the Big East about bringing in more teams, maybe something with the ACC. And is that something you talk to other commissioners about, or is it more so, if the right teams come along, that's when certain conferences should consider adding teams in?
If you want to shut a meeting down, ask me to talk to my colleagues about expansion, and you will watch them run to the corners of the room. Like, all of a sudden, me talking about expansion is like front page headlines, what's going on. So not a lot. I really look at our expansion with Oklahoma and Texas. And I said this last week, like if you want to go someplace and challenge yourself academically, challenge yourself at the highest level of athletic competition, and not spend hours upon hours on an airplane, this is the place to be. We can get from one side to the other pretty efficiently. And, the last 3 weeks I've been on 14 of 16 of our campuses, and I can make that happen much like our teams for in-person meetings. When I think about expansion, I've always thought about something that's connected to who we are. And Oklahoma and Texas really represented that. Great universities within a geographic footprint, Oklahoma, a contiguous state, relationships from the Big 8, the Big 12 days, high-level expectations for their athletics programs across the board. And that's who we are, and that's why it fits. And that's probably driven other decisions. We obviously were kind of early in this current round of movement, but like the bottom line is, if I roll into a meeting and say, "Hey, let's talk about expansion," it goes quiet really quickly.
Well, you should tell ACC and Big East to combine forces for basketball.
Come on.
You should. That would be
Don't
awesome.
leave that one alone.
Okay, all
Don't leave that one
right.
alone.
You don't want that 14 to get touched. That 14 number getting an attorney obviously could be dancing. Tone has a question for you. You just mentioned something about it.
Yeah, Commissioner, you just talked about being on 14 of the 16 campuses and being in Nashville, and we've been with you at the national championship and stuff. We know you like going to the games. With 24 teams in between the men's and women's tournament, can you just tell everyone, like, hey, there's too many teams in, I'm just going to stay home and watch these?
No, I'm not. I'm going to go. So I'll tell you, a long time ago, I'll tie the Rick Pitino thing in. 1986, I thought he was going to be a high school basketball coach in upstate New York. He was speaking at a coaching clinic when he was at Providence. It was the year that Billy Donovan was a senior. They went to the Final Four, so like October 86. He spoke for 3 hours, and it was riveting. Just like went by in 10 minutes. And so you go back to like the 21-year-old me who was going to coaching clinics, trying to figure out how to coach basketball. To be able to go and experience first and second round games in this role is a moment I cherish. And appreciate. So this week, my plan is to be at games in Lexington and Raleigh. I'll see 5 of our teams between those 2 places, bounce back and forth on the men's side. Next week, we actually right across the street here in Birmingham host the women's Sweet 16 and Elite 8. Hopefully have a bunch of our teams there. So I'll split my time that way. And then coming to the Final Four, you don't know what happens, but I'd really, really love to be figuring out how to bounce back and forth between Tampa and San Antonio because we got a bunch of teams in those men's and women's Final Four events.
Buddy, the whole world is hoping you guys have nobody in the final. Outside the SEC.
I get that.
Yeah, the whole world. I'm saying, it's crazy because in your mind, it's like, hey, we got to go here now. We got to go. Now we're in there. And the SEC probably feels as if there is like a us against the world mentality all the time. But it got, especially with a record-breaking number of teams, getting in there after West Virginia gets absolutely hosed. Absolutely hosed, Commish. I don't know how you could change it, but you need to. Okay, you need to change everything that happened in West Virginia. Maybe let us in the SEC. Something to think about. Something to think about. Huh?
That'd be good for
Yeah, well, that makes people nervous when you start saying that. I was going to put you on the selection committee. That could fix it as well. So you got 2 ways you can go there.
Hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like I might watch more college basketball than people that are in there. And I watch next to none.
Yeah, exactly.
So
what does that tell you?
Don't laugh, Commish. Can't be laughing at that.
I'm not. I smiled some, and then I self-corrected so that people wouldn't interpret anything from that facial reaction.
Smart. That's a good play. That's why you're the best, Commish. Last question here. Speaking of your conference, go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, Commish. So obviously we're coming off a national championship where the Big Ten wins in football, and then you have a record-breaking season in basketball. Do you think it would be fair to say that it's kind of trending towards the SEC becoming a basketball conference? I know it's different down here and all that kind of stuff, but do you think that narrative will get started all after you have a season like this?
First, I'm thrown by the Iowa gear in front of you and not on you for the first time that we've ever been together.
Well, we're going through some tough times right now.
I got no coach.
I have to reconfigure. We want to be in everything league. I mean, Pat's the one who threw in gymnastics. I think we've got 1, 2, and 3 in gymnastics nationally right now.
Baseball.
1 in baseball, 1 in softball. I haven't checked the golf and tennis rankings, but we got to be close. There was a point a couple weeks ago where we had 14 teams or 14 sports in competition, and we had the number 1 ranked team in 12 of those sports. That's what we want to be.
Damn.
And when we go through this change, we talk a lot about opportunities across the board. We want to be great in everything, and I think we can do that. Now, we're going to go through change as we deal with name, image, and likeness payments and this revenue sharing stuff out of a legal settlement if it's approved, but that doesn't change our aspirations.
All right, we have a hard out here in like 90 seconds. You saying 12 out of 14 sports currently being played have SEC school as the number 1 overall team. Mm-hmm. Is that good? I don't know. Everybody can keep getting mad. We just stay committed to sports down there, which is why I think a lot of us who understand what's going on down there have such appreciation and respect for it. Quickly, though, you just mentioned that they're revenue sharing. That's going to go through? We all just assume? I mean, that's been the conversation basically for the last 6 months.
Well, we have a responsibility to prepare, but that's up to a judge, not to me.
Okay, but everybody is acting as if it's going to go through, right?
It's, as far as the behavior I understand, they're preparing for that reality. But again, whether a settlement is finalized is up to the court and to the judge in the courtroom, not to me.
All right, so let's hope that it goes through. Let's hope that judge goes hammer down on some regulations on college sports going forward. We appreciate you so much, Commish. Good luck the next few weeks with your conference.
Thanks, guys. Good to be with you. Be well.
Hey, that Nashville voice is sounding fantastic.
Yeah.
We've all heard it, ladies and gentlemen. Greg Sankey.
Hey, Mish.